I'm going to talk about C.S. Lewis today and a letter that he wrote to a demon. Coming up next on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. I am a victor, not a victim. And that's our poster for the month. You'll see it up here, and you can download it here. WeareMetalWeareFamily.com. I am a victor, not a victim. I have victory. I'm not a victim of anything in Jesus Christ. Can I just say that last week, our new comic book came out. Hayden Cockrell did this one, and oh man, is it good. It is so good. And we say comic book, it's actually a graphic novel. It is a good size, 166 pages, the best story. If you like graphic novels, comic books, you will love this. It's a Christian, basically Christian, heavy metal comic book. And when I say basically Christian, it's allegory, as C.S. Lewis was, as Tolkien was, as I'm going to talk about. So C.S. Lewis wrote a book of letters. Now, he's not the only one that's written a book of letters. That's what this one is. I wrote this book a few years ago, Letters to Myself at 21. But he wrote one, actually not from himself, but from one demon to another. And Screwtape has been doing this for a long time. He's an old demon. He knows what to do with people. He knows how to tempt them. And he's writing to wormwood. And wormwood is just starting out. He's just beginning. And this book, this wonderful book that he wrote in 1945, by the way, is called Screwtape Letters. So I'm a huge fan of C.S. Lewis, of Tolkien both. I actually sat at the table where he wrote a lot of his stuff at the Eagle and the Child pub in England. And he and Tolkien and this group of guys that sat and wrote together and talked together, whatever, they called themselves the Inklings. And just a really cool story. And if you didn't know where to go with this little dive pub, you'd never know it was there. But and they're right there by that table where he used to sit is a little sign. It's original that said, to the people that owned the pub, thank you for all this time that we've been able to sit here. Very cool little piece of C.S. Lewis and Tolkien history. Anyway, he writes this in his book, and it could be written today. We've been talking a lot about the political unrest all around the world, especially here in the United States. It's getting really bad. And he writes about it in 1945 in his letter to Wormwood, and he calls us patients. When you go about working with people, you're patient. Here's what you do. That's why it's such a great book, because you read it and you think, wow, that really is true. He really does that with me. But he says, my dear Wormwood, be sure the patient, you and I, remains completely fixated on politics. Arguments, political gossip, and obsessing on the faults of people they've never met serves as an excellent distraction from advancing in personal virtue, in character, and in the things that the patient can control. Make sure to keep the patient in a constant state of angst, frustration, and general disdain toward the rest of the human race in order to avoid any kind of charity or inner peace from further developing. Ensure the patient continues to believe that the problem is out there in the broken system, rather than recognizing there's a problem with himself. Keep up the good work, Uncle Screwtape. Did you find yourself in that one? You know, there's been more than one day when I've obsessed about politics, obsessed about things, and it stops me and it stops you. And I love this last part. Ensure that the patient, you and I, continue to believe that the problem is out there in the broken system rather than recognizing there's a problem with ourselves. Is this hitting home to you? It sure is to me. You know, the best scripture I can think of is here in Hebrews 12:2. And this is a great scripture, and I'm going to read it from the Amplified Bible. It says, looking away from all that will distract us and focusing our eyes on Jesus, who is the author and the perfecter of faith, the first incentive for our belief and the one who brings our faith to maturity, who for the joy of accomplishing the goal set before him endured the cross, disregarding the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, revealing his deity, his authority, and the completion of his work. Yeah, it's done. Everything he needed to do for you to be strong, for you to quit obsessing, for you to grow spiritually, he has done. It's finished. He's the author and the perfecter of your faith. He's the author and the finisher of your faith. He's the one that brings maturity. Now, the one thing that Satan can do with us is lie and get our eyes off of that, to obsess with things that don't bring any maturity and things that lead us away from Jesus. Now, once in a while, I quote the Message, and it's called the Message Bible. It's not a Bible, it's just a commentary, but I think it's a very good commentary, and this is so good. Listen to this. And I'm going to read 3 verses, the verses around it as well. Hebrews chapter 12, starting with verse 1. Do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all of these veterans cheering us on. You know, one of the things that I notice as I listen to people who are demonstrating and protesting and rioting is what they believe history is, and most of it is way off. And it's interesting that they forget about the people who have pioneered the way, who have given their lives for the very things that they're challenging. Past tense. The people who marched, the people who fought, the people who died to set people free so that all men could be viewed as equal as they're created. It's in our Constitution here in the United States. Except when you don't know history and you don't understand that that has happened and that's the thing of the past, then you get upset with things as you see them that aren't necessarily true, and sometimes they are. There aren't perfect people in this world, but as far as our Constitution here in the United States and our laws, these are things on the book. And so I like this verse, this commentary, because it says, do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on who paid a price for your freedom. It means we'd better get on with it. Strip down, start running, and never quit. No extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished the race we're in. Study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed. That exhilarating finish in and with God, he could put up with anything along the way. He knew what the prize was. He kept his eyes on the prize. The cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there in the place of honor, right alongside God. And when you find yourself flagging in your faith, go over that story again, item by item. that long itinerary of hostility that he plowed through. He plowed through it. That will shoot adrenaline into your souls. Isn't that great advice? And that is the way it is, folks. He paid this price for you and I. It's been done. And then it also talks about the people that have come before us, these pioneers that blazed the way, these veterans that have, during their lifetime have blazed the way and many times paid a huge price. They're cheering us on. Our faith is rich, folks. It's really rich. God, who loves you so much, died to set you free. He gave you a message. It's called the gospel message, and gospel means good news. He gave you good news to tell, not news that people are upset with necessarily, or that agitates them, although sometimes that happens. But the good news presented in love is usually just simply that, good news. And folks, when we begin to love unconditionally, when we begin to share of what we know and what we've experienced, when we begin to tell of the good news of Jesus Christ, when we, like he says, strip down, start running, and never quit, keep your eyes on the prize, then we don't listen to all these other things. Well, that's what I have to say today. And I hope that you're not distracted, although so many people are. Don't get distracted on things that are out there. And let me read that part of C.S. Lewis again. He says, don't believe that the problem is out there and it's in the broken system. I don't happen to believe that the system is really broken. I think people have given their lives to make sure that it's not. And I think it just has to be enforced. People who are in charge need to say, this is what we believe. This is our Constitution. This is it. That's for the United States, it's for any country. But it's not the bottom line. Folks, we will never have perfect peace. We'll never have rest. We'll never have this state of being until we have Jesus. So whose job is this? Yours. Mine. It's the church's job. People need Jesus, and until that happens, they won't be satisfied with anything. We already see that. So get out there. Don't stop. Don't quit, like he says. Get out there and keep running the race. And don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.